Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Witch Cafe, your safe place to talk about anything metaphysical, spiritual, woo, UFO, mostly UFO, anything witchy, paranormal. You want to talk about it? We can talk about it as long as it's not boring, which how is any of that ever going to be boring? It won't be. Thank you for listening on Anomalous Podcast Network. If you're listening there, please leave any feedback that you can. If you're listening live, thank you so much. I appreciate you for being in the chat. I see Diesel Girl. I'm going to give her a shout out. She gets an A for attendance because she's always my first one in the stream. And if you're listening to this later, I appreciate you just as much. And the only thing I ask to support is please like, subscribe, share. And there's other ways to support in the description. Today, I have the honor of hosting Cheryl Costa, who is the author of many things, but she's mostly known for UFO Sightings Desk Reference books. This is the second one, right? You had a first one, but yeah. So let's dive in, Linda. Sorry, oh my gosh, I was reading that. Linda is her co-author and the mechanics behind the data. So let me know what UFO Desk Reference is. Who are you? What do you do? What is this reference book all about? For people that don't know what it is. And in my mind, guys, this is completely underrated. I don't see enough of you talking about it. Maybe you're just afraid of numbers and pages, but we'll see.
Okay. When we did the first book in 2017, I was writing a newspaper column for the Syracuse New Times. I wrote it from 2013 to 2019. Now, a lot of people think writing a newspaper column, oh, that must be fun. I said, no, it's a 500 to 1,000 word term paper every Thursday. So, and even UFOs, there were still those times I'd be sitting there on Wednesday, and Linda would have to look at me. Well, why haven't you looked into such and such, or why didn't you tell a story about that? And New York State was my beat, so we started adding up county information. A unique thing, the two national databases, MUFON collected county data along with the city, but it was dependent upon the person who was making the report to put in the right county. And let me say it this way, 3.5% of the people who made reports didn't even enter a city.
Wow.
And 7% of people making reports didn't spell the name of the city right. Okay. And needless to say, the county information was messy. It was terrible. Okay. National UFO Reporting Center, they don't even collect county data. I wrote them a nice letter and they said, put a pin in the map. Okay. So we ended up putting that kind of data in. And what happened is we had all these retired field investigators for New York State, former retired state directors, that type of thing. We had them looking at the data, and they were saying, we didn't know there was a cluster there. We didn't know there was a cluster there either. Oh my God, what about this? What about that? And we realized we were onto something by doing, to use a scientific term that Linda would use, an epidemiology study, but a cluster epidemiology study. And one October evening, we were in our favorite pub, staring across a couple of pints. And she said, what if we did the whole country? And we sat there and talked about it for about 20 minutes and said, wow, it would take maybe a year. It took 18 months, but we were working on weekends. And
That's
to show
impressive.
we were both federal contractors when we both had our 30-year careers in DC. Okay. And the first rule of government contracting is to do as little work as possible. Now, I know that sounds like we're lazy. No, the idea behind that is to, as you do a job, document it very well so you can write a process procedure. So the next time you do it, you can get it done in less time, which means we make more money because you're spending less time on it. Okay.
Yes.
And just keep improving the process. So things we did to clean up the data back in 2016 that took me 2 months to do then, I can do in a week now. Things that took us like a month to do then, I can do in a couple of days now. Okay. Or even a morning in some cases. Okay. So, because we know how to do it. And oh, by the way, the data from MUFON had its problems, and the data from National UFO Reporting Center had their problems. And they were two totally incompatible databases. So we had to come up with a translation process. We had a cleanup process. We had a process to put county data into it. It was a huge undertaking. By the time we got to 2000, and we published a book in 2017, and it had about 121,000 sightings in it. And the New York Times did a huge Science magazine article about us.
Wow.
Folks listening to the program, if you want to Google this, go ahead. NYT for New York Times, NYT UFO Costa, COSTA. Okay, NYT UFO Costa. You'll get a 24 April 2017 Science magazine article. And it was very, very respectful. And it was part of the 2017 disclosure process, because
Wow.
back in January was the Obama era disclosure of having the CIA download, declassify, and have the archives put up a whole bunch of million Kissinger documents from the Cold War. But there were UFO things in there too. And apparently the New York Times had downloaded this stuff and saw the fact that, like, the CIA always said, oh, we don't study that stuff. And here were all these OSI scientists pulling their hair out, trying to figure out what different things meant with the UFOs. So they did a really nice article on us, and the phones at my newspaper and my home phone ran off the hook from news directors and editors all over the world. It was crazy. Okay. So we ran a course with that. And in 2020, we're in lockdown. And we're starting to look ahead to the end of 2020. We're going to do a 5-year update. Okay, 2001 to 2020 kind of thing. And we realized 3.5% of people didn't put a city in. We got a way to do it. We wrote unspecified and made an unknown county placeholder in every single state. Okay, we handled that with the first book. But what we also realized is people were about 7 to 10% of people were spelling either the city wrong, or they were putting something else in, like Joe's Junction next to Bob's gas station. Or something like that, or there'd be a space in the front of the city listing, or they spelled it half caps or half, and it was crazy. So we had to find a way to stabilize that. And we also decided we would have liked to had zip code information, lat, longitude, that kind of thing.
Right.
So in August of 2020, where else was I going to go? We were in lockdown. Okay. And I'm retired. So it's even more of a lockdown, because you couldn't go any place that retired people go, go to the movies, whatever.
Live your life when you're retired,
Yeah. So it was like going back to work at Lockheed Martin. I literally was putting in a 7-hour day, 5 days a week. I mean, I took off on the weekend, and then this process of correcting it with a golden mail list merged into the database temporarily. And it went from middle of August to the first week of January 2021 to do that. It was about an 850-hour effort. Okay. Wow. 650 hour. I correct that. 650-hour effort. The process of putting out the new book, that took only 850 hours of my labor. Didn't even involve, other than Linda coming in when I had printouts of every single thing. And we literally laid the manuscript for the book out down the hallway, in the longest hallway in the apartment, kind of thing. And she would say, oh no, this chapter's going there. This chapter's going there, that kind of thing.
Rearranging. Now let me show people what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, please.
She's a big old book. She's a big
400 book, over 400 pages.
Raw data. There is some, like, half
charts,
of it
graphs,
is raw,
tables.
Raw data. The first part of it, you'll be able to read about different shapes and every state. She debunks the 37th parallel thing to an extent. Well, actually, she debunks it. Everybody's like, oh, 37th parallel, but we'll get into that later. So I just want people to know that haven't seen it.
Ask me why it's a pink.
Why is it pink? That's a good question. I like it, but why is it pink?
Okay, first thing, women sometimes don't get credit in the UFO community. Okay, point one. We wanted people to know. But what happened was in 2019, before we knew anything about COVID, The usual suspects in DC, our lobbyists, called me up and said, Senator Rubio's trying to put a rider on a bill that would maybe generate congressional hearings. And we said, okay. He said, hey, would you girls wrote the only book ever published about UFOs and statistically and analyzing it. Not even Blue Book did this stuff. Are you prepared to testify before Congress if necessary? You're the civilian experts on the numbers. And we sat there and says, yeah. Now understand, we had been federal contractors.
That's what I'm gonna say. You also have a work history with,
Yeah. So federal contractors, you do your job in such a way, you do your best not to end up in front of Congress. Okay. Okay. So we said, yeah, okay, fine. So Linda and I got talking about it, and we were already starting to plan the next book. And we said, if we end up before Congress and there's going to be a nice big thick book up there, and if the congressmen or senators can be flipping through it, and we might be on television, C-SPAN or something, we want them to know was made by women. In fact, we dedicated it to Cora Lawrence, founded APRO, which was the predecessor to MUFON. And we said, women's book. So let's make the thing bright fuchsia, so you can't miss it. You can flag an aircraft with this book, So that's how the story for that came.
And it's easy to find, right? Like,
oh yeah. You can find it on Amazon. Just go to the book section and just type in a UFO Sightings Desk Reference, or put my name in there and it'll come right up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to show people, because I don't hear enough people talking about it, in my opinion, but not everybody's into like this sort of data or this sort
charts,
of
graphs, and numbers. I get hate mail all the
Why?
time. Why didn't you put some case studies in there?
Because there's case studies books all over the place.
Everybody's got case studies. We wanted to do it. Linda wanted to do a different kind of science. Okay. And this was unbroken ground to do this kind of science, to do an epidemiology study of UFOs. Nobody had ever done it.
Yeah, exactly. And people keep asking and begging for real science. And here we have this big old fatty book full of, if you're a statistician, this is like a cake to you. This is like, sorry, I was gonna do statistics on the side too, like as my minor. So that's why I'm talking all weird about it. But yeah, it's really amazing what you and Linda did.
Well, we found out a lot of stuff. It isn't just the numbers of where they are. That we had one chart. Other people told us it was stupid. We plotted UFOs by month. And they thought that's a stupid chart, And the way it worked was, it looked like this in a northern state. Actually, let me level my arms here. A level state. There's this quiescent amount of sightings: January, February, March, April, up to about May, June. It starts to tick up a little bit, and then July and August are through the roof, and then it ramps back down again, and back down to that steady low quiescent amount of sightings, which are dog walkers, smokers, and smokers who are walking the dog. Okay. Right. And MUFON investigators will tell you that when they look at a month's worth of sightings, they'll take the text file and they'll search for smoke and dog. They're reliable observers because they're out there day in, day out. They know the environment. Okay. So there was that chart. We found out, Linda discovered, she was putting the book together, and she said, did you look at these monthly charts? And I said, not really. I was busy with other things, And she says, when you get down to the middle level states, that peak starts coming down and the base level starts coming up. And then when you get to deep south states, it was like and I'm going to roll my arm, statistically flat, but the summer months actually start going in the toilet a little bit because it's too hot to be outside. So temperate weather is a driver for visibility of UFOs. Absolutely. People, if you're not outside, you can't see them.
Exactly.
Another thing we discovered coming into this pink book, we discovered that we plotted it by hours of the day, and we found out that 68 to 75% of the sightings happen between 5 o'clock at night and 11:30 at night, with the bulk of it happening between 8:30 and 10:30 at night, bedtime hours, which raised the question, wow, are these things all being seen out in the bedroom communities? Remember, outside of a major, most people would look at the map and in the thing and say, oh, well, Cheryl, it's all concentrated in the major cities. I said, no, there's got to be something else going on here. So
Right.
we, since that book, we've been working on it. We added zip code data. And what we found out was there, you got a major metropolitan area. Okay. You've got the suburbs, you've got the bedroom communities further out, you've got the unincorporated communities further out from there, and then you get into the rural areas. Okay. And I found out just a couple of weeks ago, working with this data, that we found out that in one case, a particular state, and I used it as a model. You look at the metropolitan area of one particular area, and there was sightings all across from that zip code or core zip code every year, 2001 to 2015, 2020. Okay. Solid, good, solid numbers. Okay. Then you look down at the rest of the zip codes in that same state or in that same county, and there were onesie, twosies, threesies, foursies, that type of thing. Okay, these are the zip codes. But when you added all those zip codes up, other than that metropolitan area, it either equaled, nearly equaled, or surpassed that large metropolitan area. Okay, so
Yeah.
yes, we proved that fact out, and that's going to come out in whatever next thing we publish. Crazy stuff.
Very cool. And you said you're currently discovering things with, the counties, right?
Oh God, yeah, counties in the continental United States, when we're counting the states. Normally continental, you don't count Alaska and Hawaii, but for this we will, because we do have territories out there. There's about 3,232 counties. Now, this number is changing. Okay. Sometimes a city in Virginia decides it wants to incorporate and be its own county. Okay. Things like this. Sometimes they're merging counties. Okay. So if you Google it and say, oh, she's wrong. No, trust me. I've been looking at this for a long time. It's 3,232 counties. 3,129 counties had UFOs. 103 did not. Okay.
So
and that number is 48 hours old. That 103, I had to go back into the database for something else we're doing and determine exactly what counties were missing from our database that didn't have any sightings. And we actually put a dummy record in there to account for them all.
that's very interesting. And that's, again, something that really hasn't been done at this level. We've had people kind of like say stuff like, oh, well, here and there we see, they look at just one, but you've combined two huge sets of data. How many data points did you have for the Pink Book?
167,632.
Okay. And you get that data from MUFON and Norfolk, right?
Yeah, it's been a cumulative database from what I had previously, and then we just added the last 5 years worth of data. And MUFON was very cooperative with us about it, and they got a copy of the book, and so did Peter Davenport at Norfolk. We made sure they got a couple of copies.
Yes, absolutely. Because for people
And
like
Senator Rubio got a copy of this book.
nice.
And what I did for him, we put two packages together, 2 pink books. And then a senior member of the House Intelligence Committee was a New York State representative. And then Rubio, at the time before the election, was the head of Senate Intel Committee. And we printed out all the sightings for Florida, right down to the zip code,
Wow, that was like a
county,
bonus for
county and zip code, and the shapes and the years going across the page, 2001 to 2020. And it was a inch thick. We put it in a little 3-ring
Wow.
binder, and we put that in there. And they got both of these guys, and the New York State guy got a similar thing. And we gave them a very short, very terse cover letter, a 4-line executive summary that basically said, this is how many sightings in the United States in the last 20 years. This is how many counties has had them. This is how many zip codes have had them. And if you decide to have congressional hearings, we are the civilian experts on UFO statistics. Invite us.
Yes. Yes, you are. You're the only one doing this. And that's becoming more and more of a reality as people catch on, as government catches, especially this year with the new office being worked into the fiscal year, and the CIA is doing their own thing, I guess. But yes, they when they do start congressional hearings, and I'm saying when because I'm putting that out there, it's going to be very important.
It's in a holding pattern. The usual suspects say because of COVID and all that, it slowed everything down. Excuse my French. Excuse me, burritos. But it's in a holding pattern. It's going to happen. It might not be this year. It might be next year.
Right.
But it's going to happen sooner or later because just too many questions are being asked.
Yes. Yeah, by more people that are kind of in positions of power. I feel like this is the first time that the government, besides the agencies that were kind of keeping the secrets or the data from people, there's more people like, in Senate paying attention to this, being like, hey, like, why haven't we been briefed on this? It's getting traction, and people are mad that it's not happening all at once, but you have to take it a little bit at a time because this is a new thing that they're doing. This is a new office.
We're 50 years behind the 8 ball because Dr. Condon told the
Yes.
government Congress back in 1968, there's no reason to spend any money on this stuff. There shouldn't be any money available for government agencies to research this thing or colleges, university. That's where it should have been done. Okay.
Yes,
What
yes.
Linda and I have been doing for the 6,000 hours worth of effort in the last 7 years, what we have done, on my salary and her salary, and I'm retired. I'm on a pension, and now she's on a pension at this point. She just retired. Should have been done by the Census Department or the Department of Education. This should have been done at a government level and collected and advertised well so people know where to report UFOs.
Yes.
I still get people. I'll post something up in a Facebook group, and they'll say, "Well, I don't know where to report these things." The information isn't UFO community. I've asked people on some of these social groups back when the first book came out. I said, do you really want disclosure? If you do, go to your local library's information desk and tell them, print off the Amazon page about this book. Tell them to get this book so it can be publicly available in your library.
Yes.
And the cynicism was, we don't want to sell your book for you.
That's so stupid. You got to put your work in, guys, too. If these people, if Cheryl and Linda put their time and money into this to make this, you need to put your time in to promote it. And the thing is, I'm glad that you two did it versus the government, because maybe if they had done it, maybe we would have had to fight to get the information.
You wouldn't have ever seen it.
Yeah, exactly. No. And everybody wants to talk about grassroots. This is a big grassroots book right here that they've done. And I get kind of like passionate about it because people complain that there's not enough numbers and data and non-biased analysis, but this is a statistical analysis. You don't put any of your beliefs into this book. There's no stories. There's the only thing that you say is, I'm calling them UFOs because that's what they are, not UFOs. We did do some narrative. Linda had a rather scathing preface in the book. She says, here we are 5 years later, still doing the government's job, and she a little hostile when she wrote that. But the bottom line was, we wrote the equivalent to a college paper in there as the only narrative. And we said, this is what we developed. This is how we did it and why we did it. And this is what we've discovered. And since we published that, we've discovered even more. So it's goofy. Exciting to see.
I've reached out to media. I'm a journalist. I've reached out to editors, and it's like, huh?
Yeah. I don't know what it is. If it's not sensationalized or made into like a really like,
they've been told we're crackpots. So obviously they're still believing that narrative. Doesn't matter how much good data will they even look at. Academia is the same way. Although I did get a telephone call. I used to live in New York. I reached out to, there's 62 State of New York, State University of New York colleges. Okay, actually, there's 32 of them. I reached out to 16 of them. I sent a collective email to the philosophy department, the physics department, the earth sciences, and sociology. okay, in each of the schools, provided they had those departments. And I gave them that paper that was in the pink book and said, please invite us in for a free presentation. We will show you the data. Please don't treat us like Galileo. Okay. They
Yeah.
wouldn't look through Galileo's telescope. Okay.
No.
So, crickets. Okay. Now, although State University of New York at Albany has taken my papers, 25 crate loads, they had to send a truck down to get it. Okay. I used to be a trans activist back in the day. Okay. So between that and activism, my plays, my indie films, and all my UFO research, they've been getting it all. And that gives us a level of immortality. Okay. Because somebody's going to get a PhD 50 years after I'm dead, as they say. But that's where we are. Now, I got a phone call about 3 hours ago from some documentary filmmakers. Okay.
Cool.
And these are academic types. And they have a couple of professors who want me to come and talk to them.
That's amazing.
And talk to me on camera. And me talk to them on camera. So this is going to happen literally, not this weekend, but next weekend.
Very cool. Very cool.
We're making progress.
Yeah, you have to follow Cheryl in any way that you can. And you said that people might be getting degrees on this one day. I just had Jeffrey Kripal on last Saturday. The Saturday that just passed, and that's one of his main things. He studies the paranormal and the phenomenon, and one of his main things is getting like this into a university to study with more people studying it, like as an actual degree, which isn't a lot to ask. I mean,
well, there's a paradox. There's a paradox. If Linda was here, she'd give you this paradox. She started out at the Environmental Protection Agency. She had worked at the National Academy of Science. She's the real scientist of the two of us. Okay. I've got the arts and the entertainment degree. And she wanted to work in environmental work. So when they formed the EPA, all the people there was no such thing as a degree in environmental science back in the day, back in the 60s and early 70s when President Nixon formed EPA. So everybody had the best of it. You had a good degree if you had biology, if you had chemistry, fine, great. Those were deep technical researchers. But the body of research people had a smorgasbord of degrees. Similar thing. I used to work in corporate security. We all had degrees, and I had a degree in playwriting and arts and that kind of writing, entertainment writing. The director of our department had an English degree and a degree in education. Everybody, when you had one person in our shop, had a degree in zoology. This was all before 2001. Okay, 9/11. We couldn't give a job away at a college in corporate security. People thought it was guards and fences and white socks. Okay. And then we were the IT security people. After 9/11, suddenly everybody is an expert, and all these colleges are offering degrees in this stuff. And all of us who had been carrying the torch for years were quietly retired out of the business. Strange. But here, UFOs in the same situation. We don't have people say, well, what makes you qualified? Well, I used to do analysis work for the Navy. I did analysis work for 30 years for Lockheed Martin. That's making me qualified to do the analysis work here. I don't do case studies. Linda and I don't like ticks, barbed wires, mud, or cow patties. Right. We don't do that. We don't do that stuff. We decided to do the Indiana Jones thing and start in a library and fly a terminal.
Perfect. And everybody has their job and, or their role in this whole disclosure process.
Yes.
And I'm very thankful that you two collaborated on this book. So where does this come from? Where does this passion come from? Where did the interest in UFOs come from for you?
Short story for me was I had my first sighting when I was 12 and with my parents. silver ball parked out there in the afternoon sky, clear blue sky, and it was out there. If you hold your arm out, look at your little fingernail. That's how big it was. It was parked out there, and when it decided to leave, it was like something you see in a modern starship movie. Gone,
Yeah.
and it changes you, and it changed me. And my mother and I, parents are stupid when you're a teenager, you know. And so the deal was, my mom and I, this was one thing we could talk about. I would get books at
Oh,
the
wow.
library. She'd get books at the bookstore, and we read and share with each other. When Von Daniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, came out,
So cool.
I dog-eared on the bottom. She dog-eared on the top.
Oh, I love
The
it.
book was destroyed,
Oh, I
But,
love books that are lived in like that. Some
oh,
people don't,
yeah.
but I love it.
Well, the bottom line was, that was the start of it. I just read stuff. I wasn't a fanatic about it. I didn't want to go out there and investigate them or anything like this as a kid. I went in the military. They frowned on being members of a group like MUFON, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I couldn't do that. My next big sighting was in Cam Bay, Vietnam. On Christmas Eve, a friend of mine and I were walking down to the base chapel to go to midnight mass for something to do. And neither one of us were really Catholics anymore. And we're going down there to see this, and there's this thing streaking across the sky, and then it stops. And I'm looking at it, and my friend saw it, and he said, "Jets don't stop." I said, "Yeah, and helicopters don't fly that fast." I said, "If that's what I think it is," and of course, remember, I'm well read at this point, that thing's going to start dancing around like a fairy. Damned if it didn't. And then poof, gone, and neither one of us had our minds on midnight mass when we got to the chapel.
No.
After that, my between my military career and then my career, civilian career, I always had a clearance, and I couldn't be involved in this stuff.
Okay.
Okay. And I had a hard enough time keeping my clearance because I was a trans person, and they went through a lot of hoops on that with me. But the bottom line was, when I got out of Lockheed and I was no longer under the restrictions of my clearance, I started going around and pitching the idea of writing a newspaper column. And I retired in 2011. 2013, I started writing a column for the Syracuse New Times, and it was an instant hit. And you wouldn't believe how many editors had turned us away when I went and pitched them. Okay. But this one guy took a chance on me. We'll try you out for a month. He had this tone of the Dread Pirate Roberts from Princess Bride. I'll most likely kill you in a month. And he calls me up and says, "Get over here. We got to talk." And I'm going, "Oh, all right." So I get over there and I figure this is it, and I walk into the meeting, and all the other columnists are sitting around this table, and he points at me and says, "There's our rock star." And I said, "What are you talking about?" It's just, "You've been here a month. You're pulling more page views than everybody." I was on the online edition. And he said, "Keep doing it." 6 months later, the digital editor comes to me and says, "You're pulling a national audience." Christmas party, another 6 months later, the publisher and the digital editor say, "You're pulling an international audience." So the column is sort of still out there. The paper went out of business in 2011, but they've kept the server up with an archive of all the articles of mine. My articles are available on Amazon. If you go up to books, look up Cheryl Costa, and there's a book called The UFO Beat, and that is a collection of all 238 articles that we wrote. So if you want stories, that's where you go. Go get the stories I wrote.
That's very interesting. I didn't see that one. I think that I was blown away. I think I went there directly the first time because I had seen you on Gaia talking to George Nori, and I've listened to George Nori. I'm not even exaggerating, since I was little. Like, my aunt would listen to Coast to Coast, and I heard with George Nori, Art Bell, and I'd fall asleep on the floor because she was my aunt and she was the cool aunt. So she listened to weird things, and I'd fall asleep on the floor listening to him. But I was watching George Nori's show on Gaia, and I saw you, and that's how I found out about this book, the UFO Sightings Desk Reference book. So when I went on your Amazon, I went right to this, ordered it, and then this past time I was looking, I saw that you had other books too. So this isn't the only thing that she has, guys. She's got some other good stuff.
Oh, we can go into the woo in a bit, but let me show you something. What are we working on right now? See this kind of data printout right here? We decided in the big book we had to summarize everything, and we could only go to the county level in the big pink book. What we're working on right now is we're going to drill. We're going to generate a single book for every major UFO shape with all the data right down to this zip code and city level.
Very cool.
Okay, it's time consuming. It is.
Yes.
It has been. It's a bottle of aspirin kind of effort because the generating the charts is easy. The computer does that. Putting in the formatting for the headers and things like that
Yeah.
takes a lot of time, and we go through an awful lot of coffee doing it. But we're building them. We're in the process of building them. In fact, the documentary film team's coming here next week, not this coming weekend, but next weekend to actually film watching us work on the thing. But that's where we're going with this. We may even do we're not sure. We said we thought about doing the idea of doing an individual one for every single state right down to the city level. If we tried to do it in one book, it'd be 6,000 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. Literally, it would be a foot and a half deep.
I believe you.
And so we said we can't do that. So we looked at it. Even California, we can do for under 500 pages. So we said, okay, fine, let's do this. But
what state would have the biggest book?
California.
California. Okay.
Yeah. The one we did the template build on, we actually built one book already, and the template built was done on South Dakota. It's like the second or third from the bottom of states for number of states. They only had like about 218 or something like that, but in 20 years, but most of them on one Indian reservation. So funny how that works out.
Yeah, right.
So, want to go to the woo?
Yep, it's all connected, right?
Oh, yeah.
One more question before
Sure.
we start traveling into the woo side, because if this was just a nuts and bolts show, you probably wouldn't be here because I wouldn't have a show that's just nuts and bolts. That's just not me. I understand both sides. You need both sides, but the 37th parallel might be a good segue into the more strange, high strangeness woo stuff, because I was so excited when I found out about the 37th parallel, and I was like, oh, the 37th parallel. And I could only find 2 things of it online. I should have known better.
UFO superhighway. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, UFO superhighway. That's going to be I'm going to talk my husband. We're going to take a road trip with the kids. And then I got your book. And it's not a real thing. So can you tell people what people think the 37th parallel is, and what it actually may not be, or what we think? I know we can't say for sure because but
okay, here's the flavor of it. 37th parallel, they were saying it's got all it has these sightings and it's paranormal and all this other stuff. Okay. And the book came out in 2016 about this. We were deep into working on the first book, so we didn't really have time to go fuss with it. And we sat there and looked at that art when the book came out, and we're going, that doesn't feel right, because we took a look at the map and looked across the United States, and 37th parallel went through mostly the southern states. Okay. Yeah. And we looked at that and said, that doesn't feel right, because we knew that most of the counties in the southern states really lacked in sighting data. So my best guess, Linda and I were one day over coffee at breakfast time. We were saying, what's your best guess? And I said, 40, 42, 41, somewhere, latitude up closer to the Great Lakes, in the what we'll call the industrialized Northeast, so to speak, going across the country. And that was our guess. That was our gut guess, but we were working on the book and we just didn't have time to fuss with that. And when we got the other book out, and we had the intervening time since 2017 to 2020. In 2018, I had added the latitude, longitude information to the database for, at that time, it was like back 140,000 records. And it was tedious. It was like 800 lines a day is all I could do in, because you were going crazy in the spreadsheet version of the database. But when we got it done, we found at least 10 other latitudes that had far more sightings than the 37th. Now, people kept coming back to me and saying, oh, but they got paranormal. Yeah. Okay. I had the intern sit down, and the intern, I said, search like this. And it was a standard statement. Okay. Paranormal in Kentucky, paranormal in Arizona. Okay. Every state has their ghost walk, has their haunted prison or haunted hospital.
Right.
This was all pretty level stuff. They all had this. There was some other thing that they had talked about in there. Live. I don't want to say cattle mutilation, livestock mutilation.
Yes.
It's a broader topic. Okay,
Yeah.
livestock mutilation. Then in turn, the next day sat down and sat there with Google and just cranked all 50 states livestock mutilation. And you have the perception it's Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We all have that perception. It's every single state has livestock mutilation.
Wow.
So this was, again, nothing that really said 37th parallel. Though I do bow a little bit to those people who say the 33rd might have something goofy going on, Masons, all that kind of stuff. It goes through
Right.
the pyramids or something, all that.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bow my head on that and say, yeah, maybe because the numbers were significantly more than the 37th. So.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how we did
Interesting.
that one.
That's super cool. And there's more details in the book if you want to read about
Yeah, I put that
more
article in there.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there. And I thought that was it popped my balloon, but then it was also interesting to see the process of it written about. So no 37th parallel balloon for me, guys. You can go on every ghost walk, but I was all about it. I was like, yes, UFO superhighway. It's gonna happen.
The one thing we don't have in the book, and neither database really had it. Okay. I can probably count on both hands the number of times I saw a reference to abduction
Yeah.
or a reference to an entity. Okay. That wasn't some blown out hoax that says, hey, I was playing basketball and this guy came down and said he's Zorgon from the quantum galaxy and he's here to take over the world. But the bottom line was that there was almost no references to it. Now, I do know, talking to MUFON investigators, that some of that stuff is in the stuff we don't see on the public feed.
Right.
Okay.
Because not a lot of people want that out there.
No, they don't. I did do a project. I was approached by some of the usual suspects, and they said, "Hey, why don't you reach out to Whitley Strieber? He's got his wife got something like almost 500,000 letters,
Oh my goodness.
and see if you can get access to just gather state information, year information,
Yeah, that
gender
would be
information,
interesting. Yeah.
that kind of thing." But the stuff, his papers have gone to another university, so that will make them available at some point.
Yes.
Okay, probably after he's dead. Okay,
Oh,
but
yeah.
then again, maybe not. There's this confidentiality issue here too.
Yes.
So but it is archived someplace. I probably won't be the person that gets to analyzing, though I have attempted to reach out to him and say, would you trust me to do a good job and not hurt anybody? I have tried to reach out to him on that.
Right. Yeah, and that's a lot of information just to be sitting in a box somewhere, especially with more and more experiencers who have abduction type scenarios happen to them, are talking about it more and more. And that's something that I really opened my channel up to, is people that have had very strange experiences that lean towards that abduction. And I see Linda Thompson in the chat, and she's very open with
Hi,
her
Linda.
experiences, and, so, and you did the Lynn Wellington event with her too, right? She was there as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes. And but yes, I admire Linda for what she does. And then yep, she's saying Rice University has them. J. Christopher King was just there. Yep, Rice University has all the good stuff. Apparently, they have
Okay,
Mr.
to do that
Kreisel
project, this is the project that would require additional people.
Yeah.
And would require. I used to be a project manager at Lockheed towards the end of my career, and I wrote it out as if I was going to do a contract to the government, and I figured out what it would take labor wise, and I would need a handful of data entry people to do it. I would need a staff of about 12 to 20 people to do this correctly. And to get it all entered in the data, sanitized, so we could work with it. Okay. That would require I'd get a grant from somebody to do this, So, and who's going to give a UFO researcher a grant? Okay. Except maybe somebody like the guy out there in Nevada. They used to own the Skin Rock Walker or
Yep.
something like that.
Yep. Or
But
Gary Nolan. Yeah, he's got his research, but it's not the same as what you're trying to research.
right. So
But yeah, that's hopefully, and Rice University seems to be the people that are going to make some headway on this.
they probably will eventually, and
Yes.
it'll be more of a historical
You're just
record.
going to have to be training people in case something, because we're going to need somebody to carry this down on years down the road when you don't want to do it anymore. Or you decide to go onto the mothership because,
Well,
we
state-
can't have somebody
when we're-
leaving this earth does what you do. We need people. You need a mentee. You need somebody to carry on your work. Because we see so many wonderful people passing in the community that are doing such special work and unique work, and then nobody's there to carry the torch on, and that is very scary because it just stops. Like their research just stops.
Well,
And
this is the last that reference book's the last one. We're not going to do another reference book. We may do individual studies, states. We may, and we are working on individual states analysis, right down to the zip code and city level. Okay, and that's doable. And we'll see where we are at that point when we get done doing those, whether or not we're on our hot roll and want to keep going with it. The problem is that we look at is I'm 70 in 2 weeks. Okay.
What?
And and I would like to, there's some other things I would like to do, in my retirement.
You don't want to spend your every minute on a spreadsheet. Come on.
No, I don't.
I know.
I love live action role play. I'm a LARP person, and
Yes, I did
love
read that. Yeah.
I love writing LARPs and things like this, little ones and big ones. And I wrote one in 2018. Exactly. I spent 6 months writing it.
Wow.
And it is yet to be actually executed and done. Okay. And I've got the facilities. I got people who want to fund it and all kinds of stuff, but I'm busy working on this. Okay.
It's crazy how the phenomenon sucks people in like this. So many people I meet that are doing a lot of work on this. It's not their first love. It becomes almost their, I don't want to say obsession because that sounds horrible, but it becomes almost like something they have to do, a calling in a way. And then there's other things, you know what I mean? Because I've tried to do the whole witch thing on, I teach metaphysics, teach meditation, and I just keep getting back into the UFO stuff. So I understand you as a performing arts person. Yeah. That's your love, that's your passion, but you almost have like a sense of duty to do this analysis type stuff.
Well, I put in a number of hours. In fact, Linda very much watches me come out here and literally after the second cup of coffee start working like I went back to work. It's important. The database is going to be given to State University of New York at Albany when we're done. People have been calling me, oh, can I have a copy of it? It has no citing information in it. It's raw data. People seem to think that there's all this other stuff hidden in there. It is what, when, where, what shape, when was it in location. And that's what it was stripped down to. We took all the narrative out when we got the data. We didn't need it. We were only doing cluster analysis. We did not need all the stories.
Right. And it takes a certain type of brain to see a picture with those sort of correlations coming through, because not everybody will look at even a graph and they'll just be like, it's a graph.
Well, I get a lot of mail like that. I go about your book. It's just charts, graphs, and numbers. This thing is boring. I'm sorry.
Not though. You just don't. You're not using. Not everybody gets images or understanding or inspiration from stuff like that, but there is a huge group of analytical people that need to see the data in order to open their mind to more extreme possibilities or paranormal possibilities or even just the UFO possibility. They might see this and they'll be like, oh, like my brain hurts because this means something's happening.
Yeah.
So you are involved in other cool things that you can talk about here at the Witch Cafe, right? I noticed that you wrote a really cool book. She's a wizard, guys. No, she wrote a book that I did not know, and I've been fangirling you for the past years. See, and it has great reviews. So You said you accidentally basically was like, "I'm a witch," on when you were talking about UFO stuff, and you ended up having a, Mystical Mentors show, right? Or
Yeah.
podcast?
Well, actually, there's like 3 shows that got me outed on that. We were talking UFO stuff. And then some people wanted me to go into the woo with it and talk the mystical, the consciousness stuff. And I lived in a Buddhist monastery for 7 years. Okay, and I've been as of this moment, I'm 44 years as a witch priestess. So I'm a priestess of Sisterhood of Isis. Okay, and
Oh, nice.
so and I retired. And in my tradition, when you retire, you're expected to. There's an expectation. It's not a rule, sort of a guideline, but basically, you should write a book of your life in magic. And some people write spell books. Some people write how to manage a coven. Some people just write a memoir, that type of thing. I decided to tackle magical mechanics and treat it like science. And this
Awesome.
book basically takes it and says, what magic is thought in the form. I'm going to teach you how to do it. This is how you do it. And it's not hard, but it's not easy. And all the trappings and everything are tools, but the mechanics, the physics of how to do magic is
Yes.
discussed in great detail. And I've had very accomplished people look at it and say, wow, I didn't know that either, that type of thing. So I did a book signing last weekend, and I was there all day, 8 hours on Friday and 8 hours on Saturday, and we sold a huge crate of
I'm
books.
sure, I'm sure. And where did
And
you do your signing at?
it's at a place in Lakewood, Ohio, called the New Moon. The
Oh,
New Moon.
cool.
And since that time, yesterday morning, the owner of New Moon sat down with me for an hour on the phone and signed me up to teach a whole bunch of classes. Now, I am not
Oh,
taking on students like New Coven students, that type of thing. I'm
right.
not taking on any students. I am retired from the pastoral stuff. But told her I would be willing to do the mentor seminar lecture stuff. And she said, fine. She signed me up for 6 months, two
Wow.
lectures, 2 classes.
Very cool.
I'm sorry, 4 classes a month, basically 2 on a Saturday, 2 on another Saturday for 5 months.
Very
So,
cool. So,
so
guys, if
I'm
you
looking
can't
forward
find
to
me,
that.
I'm in
That's
Ohio
fun.
taking these
That's
classes.
fun. Well,
Um,
what was funny when we were signing books, if you came into the library room where I was sitting behind in this big wingback chair with the store's house cat is a very large black
oh,
cat named Alistair,
so cute.
and he was stretched across my table for
Oh, I love him.
most of my writing and most of my signing books. And what would happen is people would come in, we get a conversation going, and people were looking at the book. Next thing you know, I got people sitting on the floor, and we're having an impromptu class about either beginner stuff or very advanced stuff,
So
things like
cool.
this. And it was the store kept track of it, and they said, my God, you must have had 12 classes in there over the course of 2 days. I said, yeah.
That's
So
awesome. You're,
it
like,
was
signing
it was a
books,
ton of fun. It was a
teaching.
ton of
It
fun. It
sounds like
was.
fun.
Let's
And
go into woo. Let's go into woo.
okay, alright, so what do you wanna talk about with Woo? You wanna talk about what have you found any, like, how does the UFO phenomenon relate into, like, Woo topics or spirituality or consciousness to you? How does it all come together? Because I know a lot of people that are spiritual minded and open minded with spirituality end up at some point having an opinion of UFOs or interdimensional beings or stuff like that.
Okay. I'll start at a very, very fundamental level. When I was in a monastery, Buddhist monastery in Maryland, okay, buzz cut, dressed like the Dalai Lama every day at Lockheed Martin, pushed the diversity policy to the bleeding edge. There, I had a Lama who basically talked about the idea of, one day he says, your average person out here has this very narrow view of reality, and they have no idea how much paranormal stuff is going on around them. Okay. Some really exotic stuff is going on around them. Our our eyes only see a very narrow portion of the light spectrum. We don't see any of the
Right.
electromagnetic spectrum. Okay. And so he says people need to expand their their view of reality. They need to expand make their view of reality a little bit more elastic. Okay. And that was a key thing. Another thing he taught was this idea of deep meditation. Now, I know a lot of witches who won't do divining. Oh, I don't fool with that stuff. I just want to do active spell casting. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. And the thing is you have to do any of the magic. You really, truly do have to learn to quiet your mind. Now, you
Yes.
are already doing it. If you're sitting there staring at a candle to work a spell, that's kind of how you're sort of numbing the conscious mind by staring into the crystal ball,
That's
or
it's a
going
beginner
to a
exercise,
drumming
right?
party.
Sharing,
Yeah. It's all about quieting the chatter in the Western mind. And we've got so much to distract us. We've got, people bowing their heads to their phone 80 times a day like it's a god, and
get a
that's
virtual candle on there, people.
yeah, there you go. And or at least download Calm on there and give yourself some quiet time.
Yes, yes.
But the bottom line was, in the book I wrote about the magical mechanics. In fact, I even talk about ET in one chapter, one of the more advanced chapters, because if you quiet your mind sufficiently, the knowledge is available. Now, does it come down like a big booming voice? No, it does not. Okay, I'll give it a quick example. There was a very advanced class that was going to be taught in our temple. Our Lama visiting high guy came, and he said he was going to teach us 10 hours a day for 12 weeks kind of thing. And I went to him and says, Master, I can't do that. I have this corporate job. I have nowhere near that amount of leave or vacation, and I still have bills to pay, so I can't take a leave of absence to do that. And he looked at me and he says, well, he knew I was Wiccan. Okay. He says, you have experience with quieting the mind. Quiet yourself down, do meditation every day, and contemplate the teachings of the Shedra. All right. I did this, and I did it faithfully every day. Okay. I never got to be more than 45 minutes worth of meditation capable. Okay. In 7 years, it takes a lot of effort to do that. So don't think you can just jump in and do an hour's meditation. Okay.
Right. That's what I tell people. They're like,
I would be
I can't do
happy.
meditation.
Yeah. I would be happy if you give me 2 minutes a day and keep a journal for about 3 months. And then maybe we can edge it up to 5 minutes a day after about 3 months. But people, Americans, I can do that. I can
people are
puff
still
through
turned
it.
off of meditation because of it. They think they have to be in a cave with nothing there, and they have to be there for hours. And
Do it. No.
in the shower, you're in the shower for how long?
You're in the front. You're on the throne. You're on the throne at
Yeah.
lunchtime. Give yourself 2 minutes in the ladies' room.
Yep.
Hit the timer on your cell phone for 2 minutes or 3 minutes and just be alone with your thoughts. But we've had a problem in this country of people being afraid. You can't go. Used to go and you go in the bank, people just sit there and they kind of zone a little bit.
Yeah.
No, you go in the bank now, everybody's like looking in their phones, You got to handle this. That the phone is an addiction. If you're going to be an effective witch, you got to handle your addictions. Okay, point one. Okay, and a lot of people play with substances and things. You got to manage your addiction or you'll never be really, really good at this. Okay. The other point that I was bringing up was, 10, 12 weeks later, his assistant calls me up. Come on over. Holiness wants to see you. So I get in there, and he's still got a lecture going. He sees me out in the hall, waves me in, sit down in an empty chair. So I'm sitting here. He's got 30 monks and nuns there, and he says, okay, we're going to have a quiz. So he starts asking questions and go about 5 questions. Then he dropped a ringer of a hard question, and everybody look at each other and don't know the answer. And my Buddhist name was Tashi, and a nun is called Ani, or Ani is auntie in Tibetan. And he'd say, Ani Tashi, can you answer that? And I give him an answer. And he'd ask another 5 or 6 questions, and then he'd ask another ringer, and nobody could answer it, and did this. After about 30 questions and me answering five 5 or 6 really hard ones. This one senior monk stood up and says, "This is the flunkiest novice we have in the place. How is she answering these questions? We've been with you for 12 weeks. And he gets a big smile. He says, "How did you do it?" I says, "Well, I just reached into the great consciousness and got the answers." Now, was it a booming voice? No, I didn't even know I had it. It's sort of a download, and suddenly it's there. And it wasn't until somebody asked me a question, did I know I knew it?
That's
Okay.
interesting.
And the way I practice magic now, and the way I've been practicing magic since I lived in a monastery, and that was from 97 to 2004, 2005-ish time frame. Best magic I work now, I learned from that direction, not from books.
Yes.
So quieting yourself has its advantages, both one for doing divining, and you should do divining because that's how you pull down this information. And two, there are more advanced techniques you can use for doing active magic.
Explain divining for somebody that might not be familiar, because
Okay.
because I have a lot of audio people that I'm probably the only they might be listening to an amazing podcast like Disclosure Team where it's all facts, it's straightforward interviews, and then their mind's going to come on next on this podcast
Oh,
network.
okay,
And they're
fine.
going to be
Okay,
like,
that's good.
what is going on? Who am
Okay.
I listening to? What
Okay,
is divining for people that are not spiritual minded, I guess?
Okay. I'm Cheryl Costa, and I'm a retired witch of 44 years, ordained in multiple traditions, including 2 lineages in Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. Okay. Here's what the deal is. Divining is traditional diviners. Anybody plays with their pendulum and tries to tell your fortune. Anybody works with tarot cards. Okay. There's a variety of other mechanisms for everything from reading bones to reading innards from a dead chicken or something. I've seen some amazing stuff over the years.
It's a real thing,
But
guys.
basically, anything that triggers your younger self subconscious, it's a non-verbal conversation you have with your younger self. Now, what is the younger self? The younger self is that spark of the divine. It's not separate from out there. Everybody think, oh, it's all out there. No, you are connected. Every atom in your body is connected to every atom and everything, everywhere, every wind in the creation. You are connected to everything. The reason you can't talk to an alien on Zeta Reticuli 39 light years is because your mind's got too much chatter. Can you do it after you quiet it down? Maybe there's other impediments, but you can touch those aliens on that base on the backside of the moon. I've had in 20 years 5 different remote viewing classes that I taught, and I taught those people how to quiet themselves, reach out with structured remote viewing, which is a form of divining, and use the techniques of remote viewing. And every single one of those classes eventually got a target card that was the base on the backside of the moon. And they would put their pen down at the end of the session before we went into analysis and said, "I don't know where you sent us, but those folks didn't want us there."
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool and interesting, because a lot of people are it's funny that people don't want to dip into the woo, but since there's government evidence of remote viewing classes or people doing remote viewing experiments, that's okay. But don't talk about meditation to make contact.
I got a copy of the original CIA book on the topic, so
yeah. So it's funny how people are receptive, and everybody has like their threshold, or everybody has a way that you'll reach them too, right? So certain language is going to appeal to some people, but that is super cool.
Can I make a point on one thing though?
Absolutely.
Okay, with the remote viewing, people, why can't I reach out and touch that alien out there? Okay. We found out something over a number of classes. These classes were not like a one-day class. It was the introduction was a one-day class, and then people signed up for an ongoing, like twice a month. My wife and I owned a fabric store. We were closed on Sunday. We would clean off the tables and have the people in there and lock the doors, and we would do an all afternoon on Sunday target class. We had bags of stuffed target envelopes that have a serial number on the outside that's connected to something in that envelope. This is how it's done. So what happened was We had the cards were stuffed by Linda's interns. I had no idea what was on them. I did give them some 3x5 cards with some known targets, but I had no idea what envelopes they were in.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And it's called double blinding by doing that.
Yes.
Okay. So we found over the years that there were some people, you send them to a target, they put their pen down when they can't do it anymore. They put their pen down, and when we got into analysis, we found out we sent them to the Titanic, where it is now, under 2 miles of water. Some people couldn't go there. Some people couldn't go to the moon, to Tranquility Base, to watch the guys plant the flag on the moon. Okay, they couldn't do it. Why? It seemed to be, since your subconscious element of your being, not your body, your being, that part that hides behind the eyes, that's a gazillion years old. Okay, that part, you, not your soul, but your spiritual self that's connected to everything, had a natural sense of self-preservation. There's 2 miles of water. I'll drown. I'll die. The pressure. Oh, I go out into orbit to the space station. There's no air. I'll die. I'll go to the moon. I'll burn up or I'll die. Okay. Same thing when we sent them to find a spirit or opportunity on Mars. Same kinds of things. Some people couldn't do it. Okay. And some people said, even wrote in the margins, I'll get lost. And they had no idea what the target was.
Wow.
They had no idea what the target was, but they've scribbled. They're going through the protocols, and they would scribble in the margins, I'll get lost, I'll die, something like this. One of the best targets we ever did, only one person of all my students was ever able to touch this target. The target ended up being Voyager 1, where it is now, at the edge of the solar system. It takes radio signals over 10 hours to get here. At that time, this is in 2013. It's even worse now. Okay. She crawled all over that thing. But guess what was unique about her? She was the only one in the class that was a trained, seasoned witch.
Oh, wow.
Okay. She was drawing technical aspects of it in the margins. She was answering all the questions. She crawled all over Voyager 1. So, yes, we can reach out and touch the great consciousness because we are connected to it. Can we reach out and talk to some grays over on Zeta Reticuli? Yeah, perhaps, but it's going to take something more than somebody who meditates once in a while. Okay.
Yes.
I don't even try to do that, but I do ask for information from the great consciousness. And maybe one of these days I'll ask him about the grays. But up until now, I've just used that information to enhance my magical knowledge and my mystical knowledge. There's a lot to learn.
Absolutely. And I don't get to do it as much as I like to. I have 2 small kids.
Yeah.
I stay home with them. So I don't have, and then when husband gets home, it's time to spend time with the husband in most times. And, I don't have the time to just lose myself in that like I used to, before kids, before marriage. So what you get to access, but like you said, I will take what I can. I'll take the 2 minutes. If I got 2 minutes, noise canceling headphones and some solfeggio frequencies, you know what I mean? I'll
steal it where you can. Yes.
Yeah. There's even been days where I notice the boys playing happily together. I'll go in the bathroom, lock myself in there, and do some breaths and breathing just to reconnect and come back from wherever we're sending our energy to all day.
This book, the first draft of it, my adult daughter, she's in her 40s. She has, she's a magical adept in her own right. Okay. In fact, she trained with other people other than me. Okay. Mom's stupid, so, okay. she trained with other people. Okay. And, she read through it and she said, you can't publish this. I said, why? And she says, it's too simple. You've made magic so simple. You're handing out loaded shotguns to 3rd graders. And I said, that was the objective, was to make it so simple. Yes. Anybody can do it.
Yes.
Okay. But the one part that the shaky part is, so what if I'm handing out loaded shotguns? You can't pull the trigger if you don't know how to meditate.
Yeah.
And quiet your mind. Quiet the chatter in your mind.
That's and so many different religious modalities or beliefs out there tell you that in their own way.
Yeah.
You know, I remember in when I was in Catholic school, it would be quiet prayer time or contemplation or stuff like that. So, and people are afraid of meditation, but there's so many different types of meditation. There's a meditation technique for everybody to start off with. Yes, you eventually want to get more and more quiet, but people with
But this is the
ADD.
21st century. We've got stuff, the binaural CDs
Yep,
that
yep,
put tones in yours. You can't do it with earbuds. You got to really do it with covering headphones.
yep.
Okay.
The noise canceling.
And they put one tone in one ear and they put a different tone in the other ear, and
Yep,
it gets the two hemispheres of your brain resonating a different way.
yep.
And what it amounts to is it puts you into alpha in about 10 minutes.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
My llama thought it was cool as heck.
Yeah.
And that is one way to do it, but you should know how to quiet yourself. Here's the trick before you even work on those. The key thing with the people say, well, I can do 15 minutes of meditation. I doubt it because it is hard. Okay.
Mm.
Why did we do the meditation the way we're doing for 2 minutes? Because all this ghosty stuff comes up in your consciousness, your boss yelling at you, your ex
Mhm,
yelling at you, your kids yelling at you,
mhm.
your teacher from 5th grade yelling at you, all this crap that's rolling around in your subconscious. And you have to kind of handle it, let it pass, and get to the point where all these things don't come up as frequently and don't terrorize you. And then you can increase the amounts of meditation. Who wants to sit there for 10 minutes and have all that crap in their face?
Right,
Do it for 2 or 3 minutes, handle it. You don't fight it. Just let it go. Let it go like the ghost that it is. That's
right,
the trick with early stages of meditation, and to just get used to it. Once you start getting past all the crap, it becomes very easy. You get lost in meditation. Oh my God, I did it for 10 minutes.
yeah.
Wow. Who knew, I have a little kitchen egg timer. I do 5 minutes, even though I'm monastery trained, I do 5 minutes in the morning. I do 5 minutes around lunchtime or so. And I do about 5 minutes
Right.
before bed type of thing.
'Cause you're
And
not in a monastery right now, right?
no,
You're
no, no,
you're
and
working.
I don't go into a lotus. I can't do the lotus position anymore. My legs just can't handle it. I sit down on a little stool over here, or I sit down at the corner of the bed. I don't lay
Yes.
down on the bed. I sit on the corner of the bed, and I just put my hands on my knees, and I just quiet myself and do deep breathing. I do have a timer going, and I just go ahead for that 5 minutes. Now, initially, when you're doing that 2 to 5 minutes, that 2 minutes is an eternity.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
But you got to do it. And the discipline is doing it every day. And if
Yes.
I already had some students come back, well, I'm not be keeping up with it. Well, you can't be a Jedi Knight if you don't do it.
Right, right. And I remember doing yoga when I first started doing yoga, and my
Oh, yoga's
first
great.
yin yoga class, I was pissed. I was pissed the whole time during yin yoga because I was like, "I'm sitting here and I've been diagnosed with ADHD, so I can't it's already hard to think about one thing." I'm medicated right now, but, you know, before that, I was trying to use yoga and meditation as my, medication, basically, and it was working but, I had to do a lot of it. Like, I had to do over an hour of yoga and meditation a day for it to do what I wanted it to do. But I remember doing yin yoga, just I'm not even gonna lie, I was pissed the whole time. Like, I am sitting here with my leg over here and my head down there and my arm over here, and I'm just sitting here. I was mad that I was just sitting there, and then finally you have this breakthrough where that just, like, it just leaves you,
Yeah.
and then you're just I swear, like, I would feel, like, high afterwards, like I was in another dimension after doing any sort of, like, yoga that was over 30 minutes, usually the vinyasa, because it was like a cycle, and it seriously saved me during the hardest times of my life, but when I do it, I'd, like, leave my room and I'd just be, like, on another level, you know? George Hernandez brings up HemiSync, which I'm sure you're familiar with,
Yes, I
neural
recommend
instability
HemiSync. I recommend HemiSync. It can be gotten through the Monroe
Yeah,
Institute. You can Google them. The other one you can Google is actually Google HemiSync, and
yeah,
you'll find the CD products available, and I strongly recommend the technology. I
That's
used
great.
it, and I introduced it to a number of people at the monastery I was associated with. It was great. It's a great technology, but you should also learn. One of the things you can do with the HemiSync, which is fantastic, is I used to do this with some of my students after I got a headphone amplifier, which it has plugins for multiple sets of headphones, like
Oh,
4 to 8
cool.
headphones. And I had everybody get a pair of headphones, and they'd go up the Radio Shack and get a pair of headphones that would cover their ears, and I had them all laid down on the front room on the floor. And I'd hook them up and I'd start it up. And within 5 minutes, they're all snoring. Okay, it relaxed them that much, And so the lesson had to be was to fight. There's this
Yes.
very delicate part of
Yes.
consciousness between being wide awake and with everything running and going into deep sleep. There's this
Right.
little balance. You have to find this little band of balance, And so I would work with them, and they would do a session with me once or twice a week for a while until they got used to it. And what the HemiSync did for you was it gave you a taste of what that meditative state should taste like or be
Yes.
like. Okay.
Yes.
And once you got a hang on it, you know what it was like. Then it was easier to get there yourself by doing your
'Cause you
manual
recognize you're
meditation.
going into that part, yeah. And
Yes.
it's the same with
Yes.
lucid dreaming. I do a lot of, like, one of my gifts I was told is, like, dream walking. So I do a lot of dream work with other people and helping them get that state, but I was like, "Dang, I wish I would've known about HemiSync." Can you explain what HemiSync is, to Miss Pincer?
Okay. Okay. Think of it this way. You put 100 hertz tone. You can't hear the tones that will get you into the zone. Okay. Because they're below the range of human hearing. So HemiSync, say they take 100 hertz tone and put it in one ear, and they put 108 hertz tone in the other ear. Okay. And it gets your two hemispheres of the brain resonating at different rates, and effectively the beat between both hemispheres of the brain is 8 hertz, and it puts you in the alpha like that. And some of the other CDs they use can put you down in the delta and all the other different ranges, but getting into that alpha state was key to being able to find that little meditative zone. And it's a fantastic technology. It was originally discovered, but the binaural tones were discovered actually back in the 1870s by a German physicist. Okay. And then in the 1970s, Mr. Monroe and his team started trying to utilize the technology, and they developed HemiSync.
Yes, and it's great. That's one of the super quick ways to learn it. But when I was never able to find a coven and actually stay in one because I barely started talking about my spirituality probably in 2014. And being military, we move, and we're
Yeah.
always in these conservative areas. Well, I had found a coven out here, and they had a falling out between the people that were running it. So we were doing so many cool things. Like the whole light as a feather, stiff as a board thing. Like we lifted like a 300-pound Viking dude, like with our fingers. Like it's real, people. Like it's insane what your mind can do, mind over matter type thing. But yes, and the benefits of meditation aren't just spiritual. And I think mind, body, spirit is one thing for people that need their little boxes. It's very spiritual. I think that Pincer
The
said
military's teaching it now because it helps manage
Yeah.
everything from PTSD to
Yeah.
other kinds of stress. Actually helps field soldiers stay awake longer, because they're given these shorter periods of meditation, which is actually restful too.
Especially during certain trainings where they don't sleep for days.
Yeah.
And pain management too, be it mental pain or chronic pain. I know a lot of people, she says, I wish I could separate from my chronic pain on demand. And this is something you could definitely work with. I know we are over the hour by 18 minutes. You have time for one more question?
Sure do.
Okay, so I have random content. And real quick, thank you to everybody that's coming in here. I see Penzer, Paranormal Pixie. We saw Laura. I saw John Music in there somewhere earlier. George Hernandez. Everybody here live.
Hi,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
It's nice to see everybody come in.
I really appreciate you. So Random content has a question: remote viewing, and do alien others look through human eyes? And did you ask, somebody asked the question, do you think there's grays remote viewing us from other places? So um do aliens
Yes.
or others,
Uh,
do they see us through human eyes? Do they look through human eyes?
Sometimes. Okay. There's been evidence that there are some people who have a shared consciousness with some aliens. Okay. I've interviewed a few people like that, and as a journalist, and I didn't know quite what to make of it, but there seems to be a very serious phenomena along that line where certain people have shared something, shared a portion of their consciousness with that. But also in the witch community, there are people who are carrying, I don't want to say carrying full-blown god or goddess inside them, like a possession type, a god or goddess possession, but they are sharing an emanation of a certain god or goddess. Now, this caution to everyone: don't invite anything in.
No.
Okay, that's the worst thing you could do. Do not invite anything in. The gods and goddesses, they have their own channel into us. They don't need to be invited in. Okay.
Right.
You invite something in, you're probably going to invite somebody who's saying, "Oh, we'll give you all kinds of power."
Right?
No,
That's what they
they're
know.
lying. They're lying through their spiritual teeth. Trust
Yes,
me.
yes.
I've seen a few bad possessions,
Then we
and
gotta have Nathaniel
it's a mess.
Gillis talking to you guys, the
Yeah,
demonologist.
yeah, do. But
Yeah,
as far as the aliens concerned, there are people who have been touched, probably in I hate to call it an abduction, an experience or situation with the aliens, and they have they're touched, and they have a uh, kind of a running spiritual
yeah,
phone line to some of them. This is not a common thing, and not to be invited, but they seem to find you. And in fact, a lot of people that are being touched by ET these days are not being carried off to a spaceship. They're
no.
being touched during dream time.
Right, right.
Okay, and it's all happening. It's happening. The contact is occurring during dream time. ET seems to be extremely concerned about expanding our view, our elastic reality, and they are trying to turn us into spiritual mystics and excuse the expression, stop believing all the baloney that's being pushed around by the Christian right about what spirituality is and all this type of thing. I sat on the local board, Syracuse, New York. I sat on the board of the clergy council there. I was the only pagan representative there. And early on, when I first started showing up in my clergy shirt with a green collar, okay, and they say, "Well, do you people worship the devil?" "No, we don't. That's a Christian thing,
Yeah.
or an anti-Christian thing." And then they'd say, "Well, do you guys have a God?" I said, "Hey, we got gods by the bushel,
Which
you
one?
know." you know, and of course the Hindu clergy there was like, yeah,
Yeah,
32 million, yeah, betcha. So they wised up to us, and they saw that our clergy were doing the same thing their clergy were
yes,
doing. We hold the hands of the dying, we bless babies,
yes.
we do all this stuff, and we hold rituals that are important to our community, and we broke a lot of barriers down.
That's great.
Unfortunately, nobody was willing to backfill the position and when I left.
Oh, that's,
You can break down doors,
all
but
the work,
the other people won't go and do the work, and
Yep.
that's a darn shame. That's a darn shame. And of course, this goes right into the idea of being available 24/7 to, be a chaplain at a hospital. Um,
Yes.
I was running a center for my order, Tibetan order, in upstate New York at one point, and I was based out of Washington D.C. And I put all my stuff into storage and went up there, and I was the Buddhist chaplain for 4 hospitals up in southern New York. When I say southern New York, I'm talking the southern tier right up there in the Pennsylvania border. And I also was signed up with them. I say I can handle the Wiccans too, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it was never a convenient time. I had a
No.
corporate job. I had to get up for at 7:30 in the morning. I had to be online with my corporate job because I was teleworker in those days. And But I get a call 2 o'clock in the morning. Mr. So-and-so is getting ready to pass away. Would you please come and help him with the passing rites? Which in Tibetan Buddhism means I'm going to put him in his final meditation and talk him to death.
Wow.
Okay. And so it's a process called POA, P-O-W-A. And I was trained to do that. I'm a death and dying nun. So, that's there's a lot of responsibility. I know a lot of people say I want to marry and bury people. Well, that's the public side of it until you start doing the pastoral stuff where you're there available 24/7.
Right.
You aren't doing the pastoral stuff, and the marrying and burying goes along with that.
Absolutely. And people don't, when you're holding space like that, people don't, like, it's such an honor to be with somebody when they're doing something, a big event, such as marrying and dying. But at the same time, it has to be tiring even if you know how to ground, even if you know how to do, you've still sort of like transitioned yourself too at the same time, because you have to go with them in a sense.
Yes, you do.
And people don't think that. They think you're just there like saying a bunch of prayers and holding a hand.
No, you're there with them.
Yep. So,
and it's one of those things where you're sort of going into meditation with them to guide them those first steps, to hand them off to other people. It always requires me to go out into the parking garage afterwards.
Yeah.
And you don't have the family there for it. You have to chase them up because they're going to start screaming, crying, and wailing.
Yeah.
You can't have them around. You've got to be able to talk this person down. They set them up. We set them up in bed, and we bring that life, that chi force out through their top channel. And so after I would do one of those things, I would get down to the parking garage and go over to one of those cold water fire pipes and hold on that for a ground, because it's hot. It's a powerful experience. But we can talk about this another time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to have a part.
I'd love to come back. Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely. I'm going to be moving in August to Baltimore. So once I get there, I'm going to have all my part 2 people come on, because we could definitely have a whole another conversation on this. And you're getting a lot of compliments here in the chat. Pincer says, I can listen to Cheryl all day. Her friends are so lucky to know her. And guys, I didn't realize she was a witch till like probably last week, when I was starting to kind of like work out my, what I wanted to talk about. And then I saw her book, which I'm definitely getting, and I'm going to mail to you, and you're going to sign it and do all that stuff. So
when you mail it to me, go to the post office and mail it book rate to me.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's a book. Just that's the only thing in there. You put it in there. You send it book rate. And
I didn't know that was a thing. And I'm addicted to books.
It goes a little slow. It's not first class.
Oh, no, it's not.
But I send, and whenever I have to send books out to radio stations, editors, and things, I send them book rate, and I've gotten very good at sending a book rate. I've already had 2 or 3 people bought it off Amazon.
Okay.
They got it in like 2 or 3 days, turned around, stuffed it into an 8x10 padded envelope, shipped it to me. I autographed it, and I put a stamp. I have an embossing stamp that makes it like a collector's item, and then I ship it back to them.
Yeah, we won't be doggy earing that one, guys. We'll use a bookmark. We'll be classy people and use a bookmark. I treat everything like a textbook. A pleasure. Yep. Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody in the chat. If you're listening now, later, please like, subscribe, share. I'm going to get some of Cheryl's other links in the description, like her podcast and an updated bio, because I think I might have grabbed an old one because it doesn't say all this cool stuff. But if you're listening on Anomalous Podcast Network, thank you so much. There's different ways to support the channel in the description, like buy me a coffee, give me a high five virtually, something like that. Cheryl, do you have any closing thoughts? Where are you going to be next, and where can people find you?
The thing I'm doing this weekend is we're at the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And it's a conference that's been going on except for the 2 years of the COVID lockdown, it's been going on about 35 years. I spoke at the 32-year one in 2019, and both me and Linda are speaking this time together.
Cool.
So she's our lead, she's the lead scientist in the project, and now that she's retired, she's going to go on stage with me, and we're talk about it. So I'm looking forward to doing a conference with Linda.
Okay, and your podcast, you mentioned it earlier.
My podcast is if you go out onto if you look for Zycotica, if you can find it on Facebook too, Zycotica on ZYK. I don't remember how to spell it, but Zycotica, you'll find it.
I'll find it
And
and put it there, guys.
if you go to Zycotica out on YouTube, you'll find probably 4 or 5 of my episodes. A couple of them where I'm interviewing people, and then after that, the producers asked me just to straight up teach, kind of like I'm doing here, straight up with you, face to face, and that's been getting better ratings. So that's what the producer wants. That's what I give them. And so we're going to start he's got 3 more. I pre-recorded 3
Very
more
cool.
episodes. So we're just going to keep going. And, from time to time, I'll be either quoting from my own book. I'll be quoting from, other people's books, like this one right here, Becoming a Garment of Isis, that type of thing. And I'll be quoting other books and teaching. And, these things will be something you can, because it's on YouTube, it'll be there perpetually as a source of review. I've actually had some of my students from 25 or 30 years ago say, "Hey, I went and listened to that. Wow, that was as good as the lecture you gave 30 years ago."
Nice.
So that's been fun. And it was funny, when I was at that New Age store, a young woman came and sat down next to me, and she looked at me real careful, and she called me by an older witch name that I ran by back in the 90s.
Wow.
And she says, "You remember the store up in North Baltimore? It doesn't exist now, so I'm sorry. But up in North Baltimore, and there was like a little 4-year-old girl sitting on the cashier on the sales stand, and the
Was
lady would
her?
ring you up." She says, "Yeah, she says, that was me. I know who you are." And
That's
this
awesome.
was here in Ohio, and I about died because she walked in, took a good look at me, and said, "Oh my God, your lady's da." And I'm going, "Oh my God," So
Yeah. That's very cool. Well, we'll definitely have you on for a part 2, because you're going to be learning more UFO research, and you're going to be doing more witchy things, it sounds like, and hopefully
please.
get back into your theater and all that good stuff too, because you seem to love, presenting, and you have
I
a good
met
vibe
those
for it.
people at that New Age store. 5 people came in, told us they were from the community theater community,
Oh,
and they
wow.
were talking to me. And I said, where can I plug in?
Yes, yes,
Please.
for sure, for sure.
So,
You definitely deserve some of that. So hang out for a minute after I end the broadcast so I could say goodbye to
okay.
you. Again, thank you, everybody. All the links are below. I'm going to add all her other links as well. And thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you guys next Wednesday. Actually, I'll see you on Disclosure Team tomorrow. So, yes. Have a good one, everyone.